aren't telling you or what they aren't willing to tell you about the Lectric XPedition. So who is they? They is fellow YouTubers and Lectric. Okay, excuse me, there's gonna be some emotion in this video because there was some frustration. Okay, I'm just gonna tell you, I do like the Lectric bike. I like the brand. We're gonna save all that, feel good stuff for the end of the video. But you came here to learn about certain things that I wish I knew about the Lectric XPedition before I got it. Not that that would have changed my mind, but I would have been a little bit more prepared and maybe less emotional about it, and it'd be a little bit more of a happy camper. This bike is marketed highly as a hill climber, okay? The owner of Lectric went on YouTube with one of those YouTuber guys and spoke 20 minutes about how great of a hill climber this is. And I believed it. And I'm not complaining about it, but if you're gonna do real world testing of a cargo bike that you're gonna be marketing as a hill climber, wouldn't it make sense to put some hills in that test? Okay, and also the fact that it's a cargo bike. Cargo, keyword is cargo. If you're gonna do real world testing of a cargo bike, it would make sense to put cargo on the bike. Yes. I know you may not wanna put a full-sized human being in the back or two small children in the back for the test, but maybe one child? Maybe, I don't know, 2 loads of groceries or something, right? If you're gonna do a range test of a hill climbing cargo bike, then maybe you wanna throw in some hills there. Or maybe you wanna throw in some cargo there. Just saying. All right, second gripe I have has to do with the fitment of the seat, okay? The seat, the giant seat fits just fine. However, not with the Barrow Bar. Okay, let me turn the camera around and kind of show you a little bit about what I mean. I'm 5'7", and although I don't get full extension on this because I don't want it, I do want to be able to sit a little bit lower to the ground so that I can feel a bit more comfortable with live people in the back and with a bigger, longer bike. With a more standard sized bike, I would like more leg extension, get a little bit more efficiency, and have the seat a little bit higher. But for this type of bike, for the way I use it, I do want the seat a little bit lower. And again, I'm 5'7", and because of the Barrow Bar has this bracket here, it limits how low you can bring the seat. Okay, you can't bring the seat down any lower than this. This is as low as it goes with the Barrow Bar. And also, you'll see the height difference between the Barrow Bar and the seat. So anyone who's sitting on here, their hands are pretty low. So it's not like the bar is up here where I think it should be. And if you have the giant seat, and the giant seat is hilariously giant. I didn't want it, I didn't buy it. It was just thrown in there as part of their promotion. And I've since sold it for 17 bucks because I was so frustrated with it and it looked really goofy. But the giant seat has springs bigger than this, okay? They're like cone shaped. And they run into this bar here. The cone was just too big and it'd run into this. So it just didn't fit. And so I did have to sell that. Again, I'm not sad about that because the giant seat was not necessarily that comfortable and it was goofy looking and it didn't fit. So there we have it. All right, the third thing, okay, that I'm frustrated with has to do with the YouTubers, okay? Those YouTube videos, the reviews of a bike. Some of them have this configuration where you have the pad here and then you have the +1 seat, okay? So they're doing a review video and they did not talk about the issue with making this configuration work because Lectric does not promote this configuration. You may have seen it, but it's not something that's in their instructions on how to do because I had to spend all night trying to figure out how to do this. And it's not in the way that Lectric tells you because Lectric would never formally tell you that a +1 seat can fit with a pad in the front, okay? So I'm gonna throw up the instructions on the screen here and you're gonna see that there's option 1 and option 2 for how to mount the +1 seat to the frame. And neither of those options allow you to do this configuration. In those options, you would see that this +1 seat sits a lot closer to the front, okay? Right now, the back of the seat is right about there. In the instructions, it's more here or even further, okay? So this +1 seat is a lot further back than it shows the instructions. And that is the only way to do it to fit the pad. And that has to do with the pattern of the bars or frame or whatever that's underneath and how the pads get secured to the frame itself. So I'm gonna go ahead and take these frames off to get you a little bit better idea of what I'm talking about. Before I pull it off, do note that when you do this configuration, this pad will be slightly higher than this, and that's just because the bracket has a thickness. All right, so I did these guys from the bottom. I'm gonna pull this out and you'll see how this is done, okay? So in the instructions, I'm gonna turn it this way, it says to use these two short bolts and these two long bolts, okay? Or you can use these two long bolts and these two short bolts. But you'll see here in this configuration, I've only used 4 short bolts. The outside ones are gonna be the long ones, and those will not go in this configuration. There's no way that it will work because you're limited on how the seat gets put into the base here, because this little threaded piece needs to go in one of these holes. And if it's too far forward or too far back, it's not gonna work. And then you also need to secure this bracket, and that bracket needs to fit across these smaller bars, okay? So this bar dies in eventually, and you're not gonna be able to secure it if the seat is too far forward. So basically, what I'm saying is this configuration does work, but it's not explained in the instructions. So you're reading the instructions, option 1, option 2, and neither of them allow you to put a +1 seat with a pad in the front. Each of these 3 pads are the exact same pad. They're all just duplicates of each other. But ideally, I wish that this were rotated the other way so that the logo shows here and then the rounded off edges are here and this is squared off. Right now you see it's squared off on this pad on here, but it's on the round side. It'd be nice if it was more ovular. It would just, aesthetically, I think it would look nicer. And you would be able to see the XPedition logo here, or sorry, the Lectric logo here and the Lectric logo back there. Although I'm not a fan of the Lectric non-cargo bikes, I did pick Lectric because of the value. There's very good value here, and I was surprised that Lectric came out with a cargo bike and was very excited about it. And Lectric being an American company and that they're domestic, they're local somewhat, and that you have, therefore, someone to complain to in America in your time zone, sort of, I think is very good value, as opposed to buying from a company who's based in China, where not only language might be an issue or time zone might be an issue, but they're a lot less likely to feel the nudge to respond to any of the issues you have, right? Lectric and American companies in general, such as Juiced, will care more about their own reputation and about how much support that people are sharing that the company provides. I can't say the same is true for most Chinese companies, okay? And so there is a value in buying from an American company or American-based company. And so that's why I chose Lectric. And the fact that they had a cargo bike with all the specs of, dual battery and huge load capacity in the back was just all around the perfect thing that I was looking for. I keep thinking of new things. So one more thing, and that has to do with the Barrow Bar again. So this Barrow Bar, you can imagine that when you're on the bike and you're not using it as a step through and you're swinging your leg over, you're not going to be used to the width of the Barrow Bar. It's pretty wide. It's actually wider than the width of the +1 seat, okay? So when you're swinging your leg over, assuming you don't have passengers at the time or any load and that's just the way you ride, then do be aware that how wide this is and that you're going to need to swing your leg over in a very different manner to clear this. Okay, the next thing I'm not going to blame YouTubers on, because I know a lot of the professional YouTubers get their bikes earlier or get, the product before it's actually out to market. And so they're not going to necessarily experience the same thing that the rest of us will. But that has to do with just something very common that I've seen in the Facebook groups about a missing part. And that missing part has to do with the extension cord, okay? So when they sell you a basket, okay, the light normally mounts down here, but there's an extension cord that's supposed to come with the basket so that you can relocate the light up here, because back there you're not gonna be able to see it really with the basket in the way. So it gets relocated to the front, and then many people have not received their extension cord, or even in my case, didn't even receive the hardware. I found this somewhere else to mount the basket to the rack. The mistake I made when I installed the rack, because I was in such a hurry, that I forgot to feed this cable management thing through here. So ideally it's supposed to be in this little hole so it's not flapping around everywhere. I will do that later when I receive the extension cable from Lectric for redoing the light. But for now, it's just gonna be kind of out there. While those YouTubers are having fun on this thing and smiling and saying how great it is, they're not telling you about the other stuff, okay? So there's one more thing. There's always one more thing. And that has to do with the center stand, okay? I personally don't have issues with the center stand because I've ridden the Radwagon, and although that center stand is beefier, heavier, and thicker, and maybe even a little wider, the bike itself needs something like that. For this, because the center of gravity is a bit lower and overall I think the bike is smaller, that this dinky little center stand I think is sufficient for this, but a lot of people have had big problems with it supposedly and are looking to upgrade. Okay, so there is a guy on Facebook groups. I'm gonna try to credit him in the description below because I don't remember his name, but he put some manufacturers together and is custom making a bracket for this XPedition so that you can use the Radwagon center stand. Okay, so it's what I'm trying to say is that it's been a big enough problem for other people that it's something that they feel they need to address and fix. So something to be aware of. This list keeps going and going. Okay, the next thing is this guy, okay? It's not a brake light. That thing is a tail light. Okay, the difference between tail light and brake light is that when you engage the brake, the light turns brighter and people can tell when you're braking. That is not the functionality of that light. That light only turns on to one brightness when your headlights are on, and that's it. So if you're braking, people behind you are not gonna know, okay? It's not gonna be a big enough reason to not get the bike, but it's just something to be aware of, that light is not a brake light, it is only a tail light. All right, this next one might be a little bit funny. I am 5'7" and I have average length arms for a 5'7" person. And I'm just gonna show you how angled my handlebars are so you have an idea of how yours might be in your configuration. But I found that I wanted the handlebars a lot closer to me than is configurable in the design of the handlebars. And so there's other ways to get around that. You can add a different stem and kind of do that, but in its stock form, there's gonna be a limited amount of range that you can pull the handlebar towards you because of the way it's designed. This here is gonna show you kind of roughly the angle. I'm not gonna like measure it by degrees, but you can see that it's not straight up and down, and it's just a slightly towards the front of the bike. And I do wish it was further back. All right, another thing to be aware of is that the diameter of the handlebar is not consistent throughout the length of the handlebar. It does get a lot thicker here than here. So when you're buying things that you're mounting to the bike, whether it's a mirror or a cell phone mount or a bell, or in my case, a turn signal thing, make sure that it is capable of going around the thickness of this if you find yourself trying to mount it there, or the thinness of the diameter up here if you're trying to mount it there. All right, that is it. Finally, end of the video. I will eventually do a video of a review of the bike. So far the videos I've made aren't necessarily reviews. I'm gonna have a little bit more in-depth once I get to, let's say, 1,000 miles. All right, right now I'm at like, I don't know, 96 or something like that. Until I get more miles on this, I don't think I have much to share of value beyond what you can read and see and hear from other people. So once I get that 1,000 mile mark, I'll go ahead and do a video review, and hopefully that'll help you guys out. I know by then a lot of you would have either passed on this bike or have already gotten it, but hopefully it'll help kind of future viewers or customers or potential customers on whether they should consider this bike or not for their needs. I'm sure some of you noticed that I have the dual battery setup here.
This wasn't always the case. I did have the original single battery setup and recently got the dual battery setup. I will have a future video to help you decide on whether a single battery or a dual battery setup would be better for you. But in the meantime, I am collecting data, and so I don't have anything to say currently, but look forward to a future video about that subject.
So that's it for the video. Hope you learned something. Hope you don't get disappointed in anything that you find with the Expedition, and that you're aware of all these things so that when you get it, you know what to expect. All right, we'll see you in the next one. Bye.